Let's wrap up today's sessions with a legal and tax masterclass led by some of the most experienced professionals in the field. In this session, you'll gain expert guidance on reviewing contracts, understanding property ownership laws, and effectively mitigating risks in real estate transactions. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, Mr. Andreas Thoma, partner at Deloitte Legal, along with our esteemed speakers.
Hello. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I know this is the last session. It must have been a long day for all of you, so we'll try to proceed as soon as possible and be as succinct and as straight to the point as possible. Now, before presenting my co-presenters here, I wanted to say that when I was given the title of today's masterclass, I thought, okay, it's very difficult to sum up and wrap in like 15, 20 minutes this topic because it's endless. So as you can appreciate, we'll try and focus on what we consider to be the most critical and most important considerations that an investor needs to take into account when investing in real estate in Cyprus. So without further ado, I would like to present the panel. Stella Mourouzidou on my left. Stella is a long-standing banking professional and currently holds a senior position at the Bank of Cyprus, overseeing various departments like segments, CRM, loyalty analytics, and business intelligence departments. She's also a special scientist at the European University and a finance lecturer and a mentor at the IDEA program, supporting startup businesses. Stella is also a board member of the Philanthropic Association MANA, which provides support and education to young children and their families.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Katia Tsangari. Hello, Katerina. Hello. Katerina has more than 14 years of legal experience, both as an advocate and as an in-house counsel for large development firms in Cyprus. Her areas of expertise cover property law, conveyancing, immigration law, land law, and wills and succession. And over the course of her career, Katerina has worked on a number of complex cases and has developed a robust understanding of the complexities of land law. And last but not least, Alekos of Alexandrou. Alekos is a tax partner at Deloitte based in Limassol and has experience and is over than 25 years experience in the fields of national and international tax planning, tax compliance, and corporate finance. Alekos provides tax advice across a range of industries, including real estate, shipping, oil field services, renewable energy, financial services, banking, IP, and IP ownership and exploitation. So we have tried to cover essentially legal, tax, and from the point of view of the developer side, so you can have a as well-rounded approach to this matter. Before proceeding, I would like just to give you some points from a legal perspective, from my experience as a lawyer when asked to act on behalf of purchaser, of what I consider are the most critical considerations which one purchaser needs to take into account. Usually, irrespective of whether you are a single person buying property or an institutional investor, considerations are more or less the same. Now, okay, so a client comes to you, I want to buy this property. And they want to be 100% sure that everything will go smoothly, there will be no risks involved, and I want to ensure that we'll get a title deed and everything. So, okay, as a lawyer, yes, you try to explain to the person that, life is not easy, as you all know, and things are not as straightforward. So with our help, we try to help them as much as possible and to the extent possible. The scenarios we're faced as purchasers, as lawyers, are three, as you are aware, if you're buying property. If you have to deal with property which has a title deed, if you have to deal with a property which has been built but there's no separate title deed, and thirdly, which is the most common in case of investors, is properties which are under development where it has not yet been developed, so you don't have the benefit of a separate title deed. So In these cases, it's not just doing the due diligence, because the legal due diligence is pretty straightforward. You request for search certificates from the land registry, so you have an idea of any mortgages, charges, covenants, easements. It's very straightforward to do the legal due diligence nowadays, because everything is centralized, so if it's not registered, it has no binding effect. The issue for the investor to take account is not just the legal due diligence, it's also the regulatory due diligence that they need to do. Regulatory, I mean, going to a professional surveyor or an architect or a civil engineer to check that the plans, so the buildings have been built in accordance with the plans, that it is possible to get a final permit, certificate of final approval, to have separate title deeds issued, which these extend to are not within the legal sphere of a lawyer. So, but you need to advise the client in order to know what to do. Now, the good thing with recent developments in the law is that as regards mortgages, there have been some recent developments which have helped the life of investors if the property is encumbered by mortgage because the investor has requested finance, for example. Recent developments in the law have put it within the legal structure now for banks to be forced to give the undertakings that previously they weren't forced to give unless the lawyer demanded of this. So if there's a mortgage, you have the ability to go to the bank, the mortgagee bank, and to get them to give you an undertaking that you need to present to the land registry, that they will lift the mortgage, provided you pay them all the money when the separate title deed is issued. So in that sense, we have the most recent amendment of the law has helped in facilitating all these procedures, which in the past were very burdensome and resulted in having the so-called enclaved purchases of land. So as lawyers, you need to ensure that all the due diligence is done, that the client goes to the relevant professionals to get what needs to be to get the legal advice for the separate title deeds and for the build. And from there onwards, the other thing that you have to do as a lawyer is to ensure that, especially in cases when the project is under construction, that the post-completion obligations of the developer are expressly stated in the agreement. And what I mean by that, the first stage is to complete the construction and deliver possession. The second stage is to actually get the separate title deeds issued. And that's, to me, it's more complex. So you need to, as a lawyer, you need to ensure that all the relevant steps are in there, the obligations of the developer are in there, it's clear who will undertake any financial burden to meet those obligations, the so-called hidden costs. We have new obligations coming into play. I just found out, for example, ESG and various other things. So you need to ensure as a lawyer that the client is adequately protected from A to Z to be able to get the title deed. And the other good thing with Cyprus, which I want to say, which I feel proud of, because in some jurisdictions it doesn't exist, is that we have a land registry. Thanks to the fact that we're a British colony, we have a land registry, which is very helpful in doing all these transactions and depositing your sale agreement so as to have the benefit of the specific performance provisions under the law, and other issues that is difficult to extend now because of the constraint of time. So these are sort of a brief synopsis I want to give from a legal point of view of what a lawyer should look out when advising their clients. And what I would like to do now is turn to my other panelists to get an idea of their experience in this area and to share this with us. Stella, from a banking perspective, what would you say are the main challenges that individual buyers face when they are considering to buy property in Cyprus? And what would be your advice for them to prepare effectively to make the right decision? Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Happy to be with you. So from a banking perspective, because Cyprus for foreign investors is a different jurisdiction, is something that they don't know about. They will navigate a legal framework they are not familiar with. Perhaps this may seem overwhelming. So I think the first thing to do is to find a trustworthy local partner, where this can be a lawyer, this can be an accountant, this can be a bank, this can be another professional. So from the perspective of the bank, the regulatory framework that we are covering here with opening an account is the AML directive, the so-called KYC, know your customer. So what do we need to know about you before we start a relationship with you? We need to know who you are and about your income, your source of funds. So we need to do this due diligence so that we can start a relationship, a business relationship with you. So I would advise international buyers who want to come and buy property in Cyprus to start early and talk to a bank even before they decide which property to buy. Banks are very friendly towards international buyers. We have international business units in all regions, in Limassol, in Larnaca, in Paphos, in Nicosia. We have specialized staff, multilingual sometimes, who can help you answer your questions and guide you, give you all the information you need so that before you sign any contracts, you do it with open eyes and you understand all the terms and conditions. There is no small print anymore. All our contracts have big letters. But still, the big letters, you need to understand them before you enter into this agreement and into this relationship with the bank. Also, because technology is helping us, and a couple of panels before, someone said that banks will no longer be needed. Well, actually, this is what we also want. We are working towards physical brick-and-mortar banks no longer to be necessary. So your bank is here now, and this is what we are doing. We are developing functionalities. We have developed a super application, and you can actually onboard without visiting a physical branch. So this is very convenient. You can manage your money from wherever you are. You can do local payments from wherever you are. And we are progressing rapidly. Lately, we are no longer hiring economists. When I joined the bank, they needed economists. Now we are hiring software developers. So it's a different story, it's a different ball game. Competition made us better, and we're here to serve our clients. And wherever there are issues, we have local presence and specialized people to help.
Stella, if I may follow from what you just said, from your experience, how accessible is financing for investors from abroad, for example? How willing are Cypriot banks to grant financing and mortgages and everything that is required for immovable property acquisition purposes?
Okay, because this is a regulatory panel, I will start with the regulatory framework. The regulatory framework is the Mortgage Directive, which is an EU directive. This is what we need to follow. Banks, I don't know if you were here this morning, but banks in Cyprus have a lot of liquidity. Our deposits are much higher than our loans. So yes, we have appetite to give out loans, a lot of appetite, but there is one problem. We need to get the money back. So in order to do that, we need to assess each application very carefully. And although collateral does play a role, the customer has to have a collateral. And what is the collateral? The collateral is the mortgage that the customer will buy. This will be the collateral. But also the customer has to prove that they can repay the loan. We have a lot of interest rate structures. You can have a floating rate loan. You can have a fixed rate loan. We have a fixed rate loan of 25 years. So this facilitates long-term financial planning. So you have many choices. If you can prove that you can repay the loan and that you have the source of income and that you can cover your expenses, you can pay your ongoing bills, and you have enough money to pay the installment for the amount of loan that we have, that we are going to grant, then yes, we will be giving you a loan, provided that the collateral is here in Cyprus. So in short, there are many choices. Again, you need to understand the choices, whether it's floating, whether it's fixed, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 25 years. And we are here again to help. And soon we will be launching also an application that will assess your data and will give you a reply on the spot whether you are eligible for a housing loan. This is news. This is news. We haven't launched it yet. It's going to be launched soon. Still, you will need paperwork, unfortunately, because as the panel for tokenization said, here in Cyprus, the legal framework is not helping because you still have to go to the land registry, you still have to exchange papers, you still have to sign papers, but we're trying to automate the banking side of this process so that at least you get a reply, you know how much loan you can get, and maybe then you can start looking for properties. Because if your loan is for $500,000 and you are looking for properties of 1 or 2 million, it's a bit inconsistent.
Correct.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Stella. Now, coming now to hear the developer side of the story. Katerina, as you can appreciate, when one is considering to purchase property, their main concern is to get a separate title deed with no encumbrances. When the client comes to you, or when you negotiate the terms of a contract with the lawyer, what kind of sort of solutions or undertakings or comfort as a developer can you provide to the client to feel this security that, yes, I'm dealing with someone who will meet his contractual obligations and I will get a separate title deed at the end of the day?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Andreas, for your question. Most of the buyers and investors, they seek contractual, let's say, undertakings for the developer, let's say, to provide them with separate title deeds. However, we are trying, let's say, as the lawyers of the developers too, because it's our obligation anyway, to provide them, let's say, as much as security we can offer, of course. So we provide, let's say, to their lawyers, to their tax accountants, whoever, let's say, represents the client or even the client himself. We provide them, let's say, with a very long list of due diligence, which, I mean, includes, let's say, the title deeds, the architectural plans, which are approved, let's say, by the planning authority, the building permit, the planning permit, everything. A search, a recent search anyway, which, as you mentioned before, you can see, I mean, whether there are mortgages, encumbrances, etc. What we provide, let's say, as developers is the time frames, let's say, if it's off-plan, of course, the time frames of completion for the construction. So we give, let's say, confirmation to the clients through, I mean, the project architect that the construction stage has been completed, and also, I mean, we give them the facility to pay, let's say, in installments according, let's say, to the completion stages of the construction. Yes. Also, I don't know if other developers, of course, adopt, let's say, this policy. We provide a time frame for the issuance of the title deeds. However, I mean, our projects until now, they have been mostly, let's say, high-rising. So you cannot compare, let's say, if a developer of 50 apartments, they need, let's say, 4 years, a development, let's say, of 150 and 35, let's say, floors, might take, let's say, 7 to 8 years. So at least, let's say, we try to comfort the clients and say, look, from the issuance of final certificate, we can provide you, let's say, the title deeds within 3-4 years, which I believe, let's say, is fair, and 100% is not of our control, is beyond our controls, yes. Also, I mean, what we offer, let's say, to our clients, if they request, of course, a corporate guarantee, that we are going, let's say, to comply with our obligations, I mean, under the contract of sale, we provide the waiver. And also, I mean, if they want to appoint, let's say, through their lawyer, after, let's say, the completion and delivery, let's say, of their property, they can request from us to provide them, let's say, a report of the progress of the issuance of the procedure for the issuance of the title deeds.
And have you had any requests, so to speak, for example, just to give them the assurance that they want, that you know you'll meet all your contractual obligations, for example, bank guarantee? Have you ever been requested to provide a bank guarantee or a mortgage over the land, or such kind of undertakings? Which
we can accept, let's say, retention of some of the amount, let's say, to be paid and to be released, let's say, to us when the title deeds will be issued. However, a bank guarantee is not something, let's say, that most of the developers prefer, because you cannot freeze, let's say.
That's an issue, yes.
It's an issue because you have to freeze, correct, I mean, and you have to be released it, and the developer needs the cash flow anyway to proceed with the construction.
But yes, to leave some part behind of the payment consideration.
Of course. We are always, let's say, flexible, let's say, to this idea.
And it helps reassure the purchase that, you know, at the end of the day, you have an incentive to issue because some part of the consideration has not yet been paid.
Correct.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Katerina. Now, Alekos, thank you very much. Now, from a tax point of view, as far as I am aware, there are various direct and indirect taxes and levies which are applicable to the real estate market in Cyprus. Would it be possible, first of all, to give us a sort of short summary of all these that one needs to take into account, and most importantly, what to look out for in the coming days or years, or what's in the pipeline, basically?
Thank you, Andreas. Yes, it is possible, but it takes a lot of time to cover the taxes applicable on real estate. There is a saying that the only certain thing in life is death and taxes. In Cyprus, if you invest in real estate, you will pay taxes, it's certain. So, starting from the purchaser, upon signing of an agreement to purchase real estate in Cyprus, there is an obligation within 30 days to present it to the tax authorities and pay the stamp duties on it. Stamp duties are not material. They are 1.5 to 2 euro for every 1,000 euro, but there is a cap of 20,000 euros. So, since you will deposit the agreement with the land registry, you need to pay these stamp duties. You cannot avoid them. The purchaser will also pay either 19% or 5% VAT on the purchase price if there is a direct asset deal, or if the transaction is exempt from VAT, you pay immovable property transfer fees that range from 1.5% to 3%. So it's a big question on whether you hear a lot, is it good to buy shares of a company owning real estate or the real estate itself? If you buy shares, there is no VAT, okay? But there are other issues you need to consider, okay? And I come to the seller, okay? The seller pays various taxes when selling real estate. The first tax is the direct tax, which is either 20% capital gains tax on the capital gain as adjusted for inflation, or if you are an individual seller or a company and you are trading in real estate, meaning you bought the real estate to sell, you do many transactions, the period of ownership is quite short, you will pay 12.5% corporation tax if you are a company, or 35% personal income tax if you are an individual, okay? Now, in addition to these taxes, there is a so-called levy for the distribution of equal burdens. It's a very small percentage, it's 0.4%, which the seller pays on the sales value if there is an asset deal, or if it's a share deal, you pay it on the last valuation by the land registry department, which was done in 2021. So there are various considerations, okay, when you buy and sell real estate, and unless you pay these taxes or levies or duties, there is no way you can deposit the agreement in the land registry and transfer the title deed. So you must first get the tax clearances, pay your taxes, and only then you can deposit the agreement.
Are you referring to the capital gains tax being paid prior to depositing?
Always.
This is just for assignments. For assignments, you need to do that, yes.
Yes, but you need to be careful because when you go to do the actual transfer, you need to submit N313, which has to be stamped by
Correct, yes, you're right. Yes, indeed. But if it's a sale contract, you only need to pay the stamp duty.
Yes.
Yes, okay, just to clarify that.
Yes.
Yes, because I had a case with an assignment agreement whereby my client was the assignor, he assigned it, we got the clearance from the tax authority, but they told me, the original seller didn't pay his capital gains tax, they told me.
And they blocked.
And so we were blocked. The good thing was it was at the time when they had the amnesty for the tax in 2012, so he paid a very small amount, we got the tax credit, but it's a tricky thing because you don't know if the seller has paid that capital gains tax. So if you're the assignee, you know vis-a-vis the assignor, but you don't know vis-a-vis assignor and the original seller, so you may be stuck. So it's something to bear in mind always. Yeah. Okay, with developers, that's not the case because developers pay income on basis of corporation tax. But if it's not a developer and they pay on capital gains, you may be stuck in the middle at some point. So it's good that you raised it, yes. One more thing, Alekos, which I think is commonly, I come across this question commonly from clients is, they want to purchase land in Cyprus, they ask me, okay, should I buy it in my own name, in my wife's name, company, foreign company, branch? Is there any consideration to decide and how to go along?
That's the $1 million question. I mean,
are you going to charge us for that?
It depends on various factors, okay? So first of all, you need to look the residency of the purchase. If you are a Cyprus resident and you are buying property to use as your private accommodation in Cyprus, it doesn't make any sense to use a company. There are other complications that the company needs to charge you rent. Rent is heavily taxed. So if it's for private residency, it should always be on the name of the individual. If you are buying investment property to rent or to resell and generate a profit, for sure you need a company because Cyprus is a low tax jurisdiction for companies, but it's a high tax jurisdiction for individuals. Individuals pay 35% tax, personal income tax, whereas companies nowadays they pay 12.5%. It will increase to 15%, but there are ways to reduce the effective tax rate to as low as 2.5% or 3%. So if you are renting the property, it makes sense to be on a company, okay? Now, also by using a company, you make your real estate more attractive, because if tomorrow you are looking to sell, you offer the purchaser two options. Either to buy the property from the company and pay VAT or transfer fees, etc., and then pay tax to get the dividends out of the company, or you offer to the purchaser the option to buy the shares of the company. So there is no VAT, there are no transfer fees. So basically the purchaser will only pay the material stamp duties. Okay? So at the end of the day, there are various considerations. Investments in Cyprus, like for example, from Israel in the real estate in Cyprus, there is tricky because Cyprus has no double tax treaty with Israel. So you need to structure the investment to avoid paying double taxes in Cyprus and Israel.
Thank you very much. That was very informative, yes. So it depends on the intention of each prospective purchaser, yes. Thank you, Alekos. Thank you, Katerina. Thank you, Stella. I think we have time for some questions from the esteemed audience. Anyone, any questions to anyone of us? Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Andrea, you mentioned earlier, you touched on ESG related policies or developments that are recent. I wonder if you could expand on what some of these might be. And then further, probably a question for Alekos, are there potential tax breaks / incentives that might adhere to these as well?
Thank you. I'll answer the ESG because it will be very short. Unfortunately, it's not an area that is in my area of expertise. I know that there will be developments, but there are other people handling this matter at our firm. Personally, I don't know much other than that this will kick into play, so we'll find out as we go along. At this stage, I know that it will kick into play. Nothing else, unfortunately, that can be of any assistance at this stage.
Okay, for the tax question, yes, definitely Cyprus is well known to be a tax efficient and low tax jurisdiction. There are various tax exceptions applicable to individuals and companies, but unfortunately, those exceptions do not apply to real estate, okay? So, like for example, if you are an employee coming from another country, you get the 50% exception, you are entitled to the non-domiciled rules, but if you are buying and selling or earning rental income from real estate, there is no exception. So the only tax planning you may consider is to set up a company, finance it through debt or equity, mainly equity basically, and the profits of the Cyprus company from renting or selling real estate, you are entitled to the so-called notional interest deduction on equity, which may reduce your corporation tax rate from 12.5% to 2.5%, or from next year from 15% to 3%. But unfortunately, there are no other exceptions. There is reduced VAT when you are buying property to use as your private residence, but that's not really a tax break. It's just a reduced VAT rate.
If I may add, from a financing perspective, we reduce the interest rate according to the energy efficiency category of the property you're going to buy. Because we are committed to the Paris Agreement in 2050, so we want to have a zero carbon footprint until then. And one of the things we do is give incentives to our customers to buy or build energy efficient homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Thank you, Alekos. Any other questions?
You did not mention the English supposed the technical depreciation when you buy property through a company, which makes it even more sexy.
For taxes?
No, it's always about taxes.
This is a misconception. It's a misconception, actually, because it doesn't matter if you are a company or an individual, you are always entitled on the cost of construction of the property. You can claim 3% capital allowances, tax depreciation, basically. So the only difference at the end of the day, if your company is 12.5%, if you are an individual, the tax can go up to 35%. But everybody is entitled to claim.
Even on those?
Even on those. If they have property in Cyprus and they are renting, earning income, against their person, there are two types of taxes on rental income. Is personal income tax. There is no exception if you are a non-dom, so you can claim tax depreciation. And the so-called special contribution for defense, which is 3%, on that, non-doms don't pay it. But even though it's confidential, special defense contribution or rental income will be abolished from 2026 onwards. Okay, so it was announced.
I have a question.
But it's only 3%. Okay.
So, Stella, you mentioned at some point that it's a good idea for buyers to visit the bank and maybe arrange the opening of a bank account prior to the transaction and what they tend to buy. What if a buyer doesn't wish to open a bank account with a Cyprus bank, for example, and they wish to transfer the money to the developer's account or the seller's account directly from abroad? So are there any KYC costs in relation to the buyer in these cases?
You mean that the bank will not be involved at all?
Will receive the money from the developer's seller?
There is, yes, the AML directive says that you need to know why the source of funds for every transaction. So yes, the answer is yes. You will need to do a KYC and see how the buyer, in this case the person who is buying, so the person who is sending the money, how they acquired those funds.
Are there any costs for the buyer in this matter, the KYC costs, for example, for the review or anything, or is it just will the seller or the...
I should say death, taxes, and bank fees. I'm going to add another one. For every service we offer, there is a fee. Unless it's seamlessly done from the mobile app, most of the transactions here are not charged, but if you're going to, if I'm going to spend time, employee time, staff time, then unfortunately there is a fee.
There are a lot of fees.
There are a lot of fees, I know.
You are truly, truly expensive. Although, in order to be fair with
you get what you pay for.
no, you have great service.
Thank you.
Compared to Greece, you have greater service.
Thank you, very much appreciated.
But it's really expensive.
Of course, we are aware and we are doing something about it. The first step is the 1825 bank account for young people. So we recently launched this product And this product is free of charge for young people, for 18 to 25. So I hear you. Yes, we just missed it.
Thank you, Stella.
Thank you very much. Aleka, sorry, could you repeat again very quickly the ways of reducing from 12.5% to almost 2-3% on the company? And the second question, possibly to Dr. Stella, what happened with UK passport holders? Are they still able to get any mortgage and maybe refinance properties they already bought a long time ago, or it's kind of because they're not part of the EU anymore? There's two questions. Thank you.
I will try to do it with an example. Let's say you are going to buy residential or commercial property to invest for €1 million, okay? And this, the rental yield, let's say, will be around 6%, okay? Now, if you put the 1 million into a Cyprus company as equity, meaning issuing shares to the shareholder, the Cyprus company, against the rental income it receives every year, it can claim notional interest deduction. So basically, you treat the share capital as a loan, you multiply the amount of the share capital with the 10-year government bond yields of Cyprus, okay, and you get a number. Currently, the plus 5% over and above the government bond yield. So, if it's 1 million, the reference rate for notional interest deduction today is around 7%. So, every year, if you have 60,000 rental income, you can, and your notional interest deduction is 70,000, but it's restricted to 80% of your taxable income. So, out of the 60,000 rental income, I will only pay tax on 20% of that income at 12.5% or 15% from next year. So in effect, I'm reducing my effective tax rate by 80%, okay?
Great, thank you.
Now, coming to your question, we had a bit of a discussion with Stella here. Are you referring to cases whereby British passport nationals acquired property in Cyprus,
yes,
and that was mortgaged to finance a loan from a Cypriot bank, and what happens now post-Brexit,
correct,
whereby, okay, so this is the scenario.
For example, I bought in 2006, there was no issue,
yeah,
but after 2020 or whenever the Brexit happened,
yeah,
when I went, and I actually was talking about refinancing properties I already owned,
yes,
it was like, oh, because you're a British citizen, we cannot do anything.
Yes.
Really? Even 50%?
It's
wow.
it's a tricky question because after Brexit, in theory, all British nationals, they have to get a permit from the Council of Ministers in order to own land in Cyprus. So,
even with yellow slip, I have yellow
yes,
slip.
it doesn't make any
Yeah.
difference. I mean, it doesn't make any whether you are permanently resident in Cyprus or not. If you are not EU national, or if you are purchasing property with a foreign company and not a Cypriot company or EU company, you have to get a permit from the Council of Ministers, and that is subject to certain restrictions in terms of area and construction and everything. Now, the tricky part here, which I don't think I can answer it right now, it's what happens in cases like yours where you have bought the land when you are EU national, and now you are not EU national. What happens?
No, I wasn't EU national at the time.
You were British at the time.
At the time, actually, I was Russian in 2006.
Sorry, I thought you said British.
When I bought, I was Russian. And
okay.
now, over that time, I got British citizenship.
Okay.
So now
sorry. I thought you have British nationality.
Obviously, with Russian passport holders, they unlikely give me
okay.
a loan. So I said, okay, let's use my British passport now.
When you acquired the land,
yeah,
you
I was
must
Russian
have,
citizen.
You must have gotten a permit, a license, for a permit from the Council of Ministers. Because you are non-EU.
At the time, I was buying it together with my partner, so he was British.
But still, if it was registered in your name as well, you must have applied and got a license.
After that, I mean, it's my story, right?
Okay, it's a bit complicated. Yeah.
And then there was, I basically brought him up and we did the assignment.
It's a bit complicated because,
Yeah.
for example, now if you are not EU and you have land in your name, to refinance it, to have a mortgage is still an issue because effectively the bank may be exposed because they may not be able to enforce if there's an issue with whether you have a right to the land or not.
No, I have. I have assignment
They will need to check that you have all the
the...
licenses, everything from the Council of Ministers and everything, yes.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Because you are not EU anymore, yeah. Even if you had a British passport at the
And
time.
the same with the new property. I can't get any mortgage because I'm British citizen.
No, you can get a mortgage. But
If I'm buying new property.
if you're buying new property, you can get a mortgage subject to the bank approving your, but you also need the permit from the Council of Ministers.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a question.
Because it's a very particular case, give me your name and I will call you tomorrow, okay?
There is a question.
One more question, yeah, from the back, the lady at the back.
Hello, just want to check with inheritance tax here in Cyprus. So if, say, my parents get from China, has property here, if they passed away in the future, how will that be counted for? And while now, as our generation, we live here in Cyprus. Thank you.
Very simple. No inheritance taxes, no gift taxes in Cyprus. So you should not worry about Cyprus. If there is an issue in China, that's a different story. But in Cyprus, no.
Sorry, one follow-up, but so the Cyprus part is a Cyprus part that is separate from the Chinese part?
Yeah.
No. What Aleko is saying, if you own property in Cyprus and you pass away, there is no inheritance tax applicable in this case to any if it's movable or immovable property from a Cypriot law perspective. But if you are considered domiciled in another jurisdiction, we don't know what happens there. For Cypriot tax purposes, you won't be subject to any inheritance tax in Cyprus because it doesn't exist. It was abolished in 2000. So only the people who died before 2000 had to deal with this. Yeah.
So don't worry about Cyprus, there is nothing.
For the time being, don't worry about Cyprus.
Only legal and accountant.
Bank fees as well. Okay. Katrina, do you have something? So one more question.
One more question, yes. This question is to Alek or to Katia. Is about this discount for VAT. If we speak about Cypriot individual who wants to buy the new property, and he already has few properties. Some of them he bought on secondary market, some of them he bought on also on primary market and paid 19%. But now, for example, he wants to buy new one and wants to get this once a life discount. What can affect such discounts?
I have my notes because I was actually expecting this question and I'm not dealing with VAT, but I can reply. So basically, if you are buying a house or flat to use as your private residence, you are entitled to the reduced 5% VAT rate. Now, the conditions have changed back in October 2023, and you can only claim the reduced rate if, I will need my glasses to read. Sorry. So basically, if the property is up to 190 square meters built-in coefficient and the purchase price is up to 475,000, you are allowed to claim the reduced rate, but you can only claim it on the first 130 square meters and up to a purchase price of 350,000. Okay? So if you buy anything up to 350,000 and the square meters do not exceed 130, you can apply and pay the reduced rate. Now, if the value is above 475,000 or the area, the building coefficient of the property is more than 190 square meters, you cannot claim the reduced rate on anything. You will pay the full 19% VAT. Okay?
But also, I mean, I understood your question is that if you have several, let's say, before, and you want, if you want, let's say, to buy a property which is more expensive, let's say, than the previous ones, and you have already, let's say, used the 5%, you can cancel, let's say, that 5%, you can pay, I mean, back, if I'm wrong, and you can apply, let's say, with a new application for the new property, which is more expensive. So it's up to you. Ah, okay. It's more. If the building permit was in the past, I mean, and you are allowed, let's say, with the previous, let's say, regulations.
The 5% rate used to apply to any values and any, but unfortunately, we are part of the European Union. They challenge us and they put a cap. Not Cyprus, the European Union. 23, in 2023, yes.
End of October.
End of
October.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. It was a pleasure. Thank you.